episode of the podcast is brought to you by LeafWell.
Hello, Cannabinoid Connect listeners. Have you ever thought about getting a medical card? The process can be intimidating and hard to navigate. That's why I've partnered with LeafWell, the easiest and most affordable way to get a medical card in Texas and 32 other states in the U.S. LeafWell seamlessly connects you to a network of doctors that will help you get certified online in minutes. LeafWell is run by data scientists, cannabis specialists, and patient advocates that are passionate about increasing access and education around medical cannabis. LeafWell's patient support team is also there to support you throughout your entire journey using medical cannabis. As I've mentioned, I've partnered with LeafWell to provide all my listeners with a discount to become certified for medical cannabis. Simply go to their website at leafwell.com and use the promo code CCTX to receive $15 off the price of getting a medical card. LeafWell only charges you if you get approved, so what do you have to lose? Visit their website at leafwell.com today and use the promo code CCTX to get certified for medical cannabis. Risk-free. Hello, Amy. How are you?
Excellent. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was telling you before we started recording that I'm just so excited and eager to be talking with you, and just hear all the great work and plans that the Cannabis Media Council is putting forward come 2023. It sounds like it's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation to talk about it and give a little bit of alpha and share what's coming to market. And the Cannabis Media Council is so excited to be launching our first campaign early 2023. So look for us in January to be really chatting up a storm about what we're bringing to market. But the Cannabis Media Council, as an organization, seeks to end the mainstream media moratorium on cannabis advertising. And the reason why we want to do that is because if there's one thing that every operator in the cannabis space shares as a need and a goal, is that we have to grow the addressable market. We have to have more curious and confident cannabis consumers stepping into our dispensaries or looking to see what's on the regulated market that may be different than what they think they know about cannabis.
Right.
And so the Cannabis Media Council said the best way to reach these consumers is through publications that they already trust and admire. And so we're like, let's do an incredible ad campaign that's consumer focused and sets aside so many of the things that make us special and unique and differentiated as cannabis operators and providers. And instead really just focus on cannabis as a category, as a whole, and reach out through mainstream media with an aggregated true 360 advertising campaign in order to reach consumers where they are. And so the campaign, just to give a little bit of a highlight, we're starting to share the name of it, but the campaign is called I'm High Right Now.
I'm high right now. And I can already kind of, I don't want to, I guess I can guess, right? And kind of think about what the theme would be. So from that, hearing that campaign theme, it sounds like there's going to be real life situational circumstances or situations where an individual may be high, but is still performing a task or living their normal day-to-day life, which, by the way, probably a lot of people do nowadays. Adults, whether it be their workplace, if their job doesn't, test for drugs or cannabis or what have you. But I like that. That's clever. That makes a lot of sense. There's a lot that you could do with that, I could see.
Absolutely. And you're so right. The notion of I'm high right now is one that we're not shying away from that this plant can be elevating. And there's no stigma in that. There's no shame in that. But then also let's expand the definition of high. And I think what we're striving to do through this campaign and the creative is exactly to your point, showcase how it's extremely elevating and euphoric and absolutely elevating to go about your daily life without the layers of anxiety or without the layers of pain that cannabis can help with. And
Yeah.
so exactly to your point, the I'm high right now is meant to be, both, potentially an obvious statement, and then also somebody be like, wait, really? Because you're super functional.
Right. And I love the humorous take, when communicating this message, with the overall goal of destigmatizing the plant. And, I think, well, most people in the industry can point to what Weed Maps did during the Super Bowl, right? And their ad, cannabis censorship affects everybody, especially Brock Oli, right? And so I've talked about this before, and there's others that have agreed. Humor is definitely one way that we can definitely get the message out, because you can relate in different ways, right? Through humor to connect with people. Another thing that I've talked about, and this has been echoed, is the power that women within the industry have, right? Or even women outside of the industry that are consumers, because of, not to mention just the day-to-day stress that women have overall compared to men, but also like the fact that this plant really does help therapeutically address, particularly female issues. So is there any thoughts on leveraging the female voice within this campaign narrative?
Definitely. And you're so right that women are doing so much to move the industry forward. And it's worth noting that women have always been part of the movement. And now the industry, we see that it's women as caregivers, it's women as daughters or mothers or aunties who are talking to generations within their family of try this, or consider this. And we see this as a place where women really are, in addition to all of the incredible professional bosses that are out there doing amazing work in the industry within their skills of expertise. We also see women, doing the work of, putting the products in people's hands, being like, you've got to try this. If you've exhausted all over other opportunities, or the stuff that's out there just isn't made for us or working for us, and that's really notable with women's health. It's incredible, the stories I hear about women who are enduring fibroids or endometriosis, and cannabis is helping them with cycles, and even innovative applications where you might be looking at a tincture, or you might be looking at an RS oil, but people are saying, women, put it in your belly buttons. And put it in a place that's more localized and can help with the acute pain. And so a topical can go through the belly button in a different way than it can go through sublingually through the whole entire system.
Right.
And so to that point, yes, absolutely. And we will be uplifting women's voices within the campaigns. And so it's something to note that as we connect with consumers, we've made it a point for this first iteration of the campaign to connect with our elders, specifically with our aunties, our grandmothers, in order to talk to them about how this plant that some of our ancestors and elders have been completely separated from through generations of practice with it, but then also to not be so overly stigmatized or so misinformed by propaganda that they won't consider this plant and these medicines that will dynamically help them. And the interesting thing too, as we infuse our campaigns and we infuse this mission and this and the media with a female perspective and a female voice, it is amazing to share that as Joyce and Ali is the co-founder of the Cannabis Media Council with me, that as we put together our board and welcomed our president, Lulu Sway, incredible force and leader, that
Yeah, I
our
just had her
entire
on.
founding,
I published her episode today. Great conversation. She's a wonderful person. Really
a
enjoyed it.
total force. And
Yeah.
it just turns out that our entire board is female right now. They're complete bosses in their field and what we're focusing on, whether it's marketing, whether it's culture, whether it's experience, whether it's media expertise, but all female board. And so it's been an amazing thing to come together as a cohort and a council, and then also to develop our first campaign together.
Yeah. So for those that are watching the pod or listening, excuse me, I'm showcasing the website here, Cannabis Media Council, and yeah, we're like, if you don't mind, Amy, why don't you just kind of run us through just high level each individual, female individual within the founding board members and kind of their background and the value that they're adding to the council.
Sure, I would be happy to do it. So let's start with leadership. And Joyce Sonali and I, came together a couple of years ago. And Joyce, from her perspective at Big Rock, is looking and has seeded and funded, much of the incredible industry leaders that we see in the space today. Has incredible vision. I see all of these decks of brands looking for investment come across my desk, and they're all looking to destigmatize their entire market. They're looking to, crush the 50 to 100 years of propaganda that's been, dispelled across this planet. And they're asking for, 5% of their operating budget to like shift the entire marketing landscape, and change the hearts and minds and destigmatize. And she's like, it's a heroic effort, but the truth is there's only so far that we can go alone. And if I'm seeing this from a funder perspective, that I know then people are seeing it across the board. And it's true, from my time of working at an MSO, from my time at founding Pheno, an ad agency that specializes in cannabinoid brands, businesses, and revolutions as we continue to legalize this plant, is that we're alone trying to get after a problem that needs to be solved categorically and needs to have a cohort to come after it and to advocate on our behalf. And so when we came together, we're like, all right, this is what we've got to do. We need Lulu to get this actionable, to focus this and start to build the board. And so then the first person who's most influential that I have to just say has done an incredible job with the campaign is Allison Disney. Allison Disney is the co-founder of an award-winning brand and marketing and design agency, Receptor Brands. I met her when we were judging on the Clio Awards in a previous year, and I was like, she's incredible. I can't wait to have an opportunity to work with her. And Allison's brought her creative team to this project and absolutely astounded us. And so we're so excited to share what she's done in creative aspects. And then we'll continue on not only with this campaign, but we already have 3 more that are teed up to go live.
Wow. Well, go ahead. So one question that I had was, so what does the process look like? I mean, to an advertising campaign traditionally takes time in terms of the audience you're trying to target, the message that you're trying to convey. I guess a lot of that work has been done because we're operating in a space where we kind of have to work with what we got, right? Like the traditional Metas and Googles and Instagrams of the world, they don't allow for advertising or there's censorship within cannabis. So we've kind of found our own outlets. But when we're talking about mainstream and the broader audience here, how have you gone about that process, and how has the team really banded together to narrow down the messaging and the overall theme?
It's a great question. And I think it starts with the idea that yes, people that are in cannabis and marketers that are in cannabis are not only the most nimble, the most creative with working what they've got, but also for those that have longevity in this space, there's also an undercurrent of not being content with it and continually pushing for evolution and for more. And so it's with that dual purpose of both. We know that there's rampant censorship across the board against this category, but there are also dozens, hundreds of places that you can advertise. And so part of the reason that I founded Pheno was because we need a holistic approach to going to market for the paid channel. It's the most underserved and underutilized channel, but
that's the new audience too, right? I mean, because we're talking to each other kind of as an industry. So
exactly.
Exactly.
And so the process is making the business case to publishers as to why and how they can open their inventory to cannabis advertisers. And so there's been for years, it's about having the conversation of how do we validate, how do we work, first concern is always usually around if there's any type of federal licensing and how do we manage that within like legal and compliance. The second thing is usually around brand safety and making sure that the publishers and platforms, other brands are comfortable with the category and aren't going to be either threatened by it or feel diminished by it. And so it's really about an education of how do we incorporate cannabis advertising so that it fits within the environment that we're going into. Sure. And then third, it's about helping these publishers validate and verify who are legit players in the space, because they don't know. They don't know the difference between someone who's licensed or unlicensed. And so the Cannabis Media Council also serves to say, look at our 100+ list of members. They're all doing their absolute best to be within the regulatory framework and succeeding at it. And so to your point, the one major partner that we wanted to launch with, because they are the largest mainstream publishing empire that accepts cannabis advertising throughout many of their properties, not all, but many of their properties, is Hearst Media.
Is this the plot twist?
Hearst Media.
Hearst Media. If those listening, okay, so let's just pause really quick, okay? Because Hearst Media is the media publication 100 years ago, right? I guess that started the Reefer Madness campaign. And I'm so glad that, you brought it up before I did, because I definitely wanted to get to that. So that's Hearst Media is the main partner for this effort. Is that right?
Yes. And we waited until it was the right time with Hearst and with our partners to say, if you do this now, you have evolved from one really oppositional and damaging perspective on the industry to now saying we want to help uplift this category. Like, we now as a company agree with being part of helping people learn more about cannabis and discover it where it is legal and available near them. And so when we started out with this partnership, we were very excited, because we're like, cannabis advertisers need to reach audiences at scale. They need to reach people within publications that they already trust. And so if we can partner in a way that's real and that Hearst acknowledges their history, they apologize for it, but then also say, we want to be part of changing this narrative. It is something that is important as corporations, as people, as people, coming through the evolution of understanding this plant and being part of it, that the Cannabis Media Council gives opportunity for people to have a change of heart and mind and be like, oh, I was wrong about this plant. And it's okay to get it wrong. And it's okay to acknowledge our wrongness, to apologize for it, but then work and invest to get it right. And so for us, it made a lot of sense to partner with Hearst. And it also showed, one, that we're super serious about ending the mainstream media moratorium on cannabis advertising, and that we are going to work with our partners to develop and evolve so that we're authentic with their own evolution, but also to be humble in this and to give people the opportunity to get to know this plant anew and engage with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, definitely the involvement of Hearst Media definitely adds that layer of seriousness, I would say, right? Because again, they led the charge with the propaganda movement, but now, like you said, they've understand their mistakes, and they're really trying to rectify those wrongdoings. And so my question is, how involved are they going to be? I understand from advertising agency's perspective, they have the manpower, the resources to get the content produced, right? The commercial, they're doing the shooting. So, in terms of Hearst Media itself as its own entity, are they running ads themselves, or are they running messaging and really, being a proponent of cannabis when in fact these campaigns start to launch?
Yes. So the relationship with Hearst is that they not only are in lockstep with us and have been, overly supportive of launching the Cannabis Media Council. They sponsored the lead position at the Clio Cannabis Awards for us to, stand on stage together to say we're doing this in partnership, and so they want to send a very clear and open signal that they are here to support the cannabis industry and advertisers with their inventory. And in addition to the media that we're running for the Cannabis Media Council campaigns, the I'm High Right Now campaigns, which was approved like verbatim, imhighrightnow.com will be advertised through these channels. And so just to be very clear, this is a message from the Cannabis Media Council. Like, there's not going to be any shying away from what we're talking about. And so I think it's important to, sometimes, advertising gets so, washed out that we don't even know what we're talking about anymore. You end up with a sunrise and a logo, right?
Right.
And so to be very clear about what we're talking about is what we want from our media partners. But in addition to that, and also tons of value add and tons of in-kind media that's super generous, we're also part of advocating within the Hearst network of publishers and platforms for expanding the categories, expanding more and more inventory, making more and more available. And so this is an internal charge, as well as the Cannabis Media Council serving as a trade partner that shows if you put great work and empower it out into the market, that people are going to respond and not be worried about brand safety or censorship or what have you. But instead, they're going to engage in creative advertising that's witty and humorous in the same way that they do with other ads that spark the conversation and get people going and talking.
Right. Yeah. And you alluded to it earlier in the conversation. And I couldn't agree more. It's like we just need to get past that line get cannabis within the mainstream media, because I really believe that there's so many canna curious people out there. And like you said, they may be hesitant to go into the dispensaries, but if, the mainstream network is promoting commercials that's talking about cannabis or in a humorous way or an educational way, it tends to really help because there is generations that are still tuning in to the 5 o'clock news or, whatever it is, or reading that publication that they love. Right. So I Googled before the episode who Hearst Media owns. And so there's like Cosmopolitan, Oprah magazine. So I know you said earlier, and of course, right, the narrative would need to fit the publication, right? It wouldn't, be spread across. But I mean, do you envision, this message really being disseminated through the majority of the publications that Hearst Media owns? And here's a follow-up question to that is, we know it's not enough to just kind of put one message out. I mean, there's got to be follow-up with people's attention spans today, right? With so much content out there. So what's the educational follow-up plan after this campaign runs?
Yeah, those are all really good questions. And also the question on the full list of publications is still being developed. And like any good media planner and strategist, it's like, how do we deploy these dollars to have the most impact at the right time, right? And so we're having the same conversation with Hearst, and with the campaign launching in the middle of January, there's quite a bit of emphasis and focus on the Connecticut market. Connecticut is coming online with adult use the 10th of January. And so we're looking to coincide with our campaign with, the timing of that. We're certainly looking at the New York market. We're so excited that New York adult use dispensary, the first one, is opening next week at the time of this recording. And so we're so thrilled to see what Housing Works does with the first dispensary, and amazing organization that's part of the Cannabis Media Council member group, and so excited to see what they're going to bring to the New York market. So to answer your question, the publications will follow the strategy of the campaign. And then also the publications will continually open as more and more publishers, including Hearst, come online and accept this category. But to your point, the reason why we advertise is to build memory. I mean, that is why. And so memory is formed by making something that's memorable, and sometimes you can get that done in one-time wonder. But oftentimes, we're seeing now marketing data and reports come out that it takes at least like 15 meaningful touch points, like really deeply trusted, meaningful touch points before someone will even start to think about doing what, maybe the messaging is asking them to do. And so there is a real dimension of recency and frequency in advertising term of how much a consumer is exposed to a message and through advertising. And because advertising can do that at scale, that's what makes it valuable. And so PR is fantastic and amazing because you have an opportunity, in an article that people can revisit depending on, what form it's in. And it can be so trusted and so impactful, but it's one hit, right? Whereas with advertising, you can also have a large number of impressions and large viewability into something, and also do it repeatedly. And so that transactional and that repeatable recency frequency dimension is how you build memory, and why advertising is so important to anybody that's looking to sell or move people towards something.
Yeah. I mean, we see it so often, right? Even within the streaming platforms like not Netflix. They do now. They have commercials, but before they didn't. But let's say Hulu, right? Repeated commercials. I mean, after every break, it's the same exact brand running the same exact ad. That has been, I think, cranked up a notch since streaming networks have come to play. Because before, with traditional commercials, I mean, you would see them maybe every other iteration. But I see what you're saying. It's that memory touch point. And so, I mean, and then I would imagine there's a whole digital plan also, right? Because there's got to be landing pages, there's got to be destinations online or within apps for people to even learn more and follow up on the material that they're seeing through ads.
Yes, definitely. And our goal as the council is not to do it all. Our goal is to run, national campaigns that get lots and lots of attention and lots of impressions, and drive to a landing page, but really as close as we can, connect people for additional discovery with members that are within our group, as well as partners that are in the industry that are already doing the incredible work of educating or talking about the different types of cultivars, or the different type of brands that are in the market, what's available, how to get a medical card if you're in a medical state, and so on and so forth. And so
or even the efficacy of the plant, like our ECS, and how our receptors bind to the cannabinoids, and how there's just been this whole misinformation of how it's compared to alcohol. I mean, our body is biologically married to the plant in different ways with those receptors. So I mean,
exactly.
All that education's great. What is the plan after this? I mean, I would imagine that you're going to want to continue to run these regional and national campaigns. So are you envisioning that, the message will just evolve naturally, as most narratives do within advertising?
So there's a few plans. One is that this campaign will evolve with messaging and different angles. Right now we're focusing in on our elders. And so I definitely see I'm High right now campaigns that focus in on other groups that need to be elevated and need to be cultivated, to let go of this stigma, encouraged to let go of fears, and really have intergenerational conversations. I see that I'm High right now translating to a number of different audiences and segments of the consumer base that will resonate and have humor. I also see within the campaign that for budget, as well as for placement opportunities, we focused in on print, digital, and audio to start for the campaign. But we would love to create videos, not only for connected TV, but also to hopefully break linear with broadcast and open up a new category and a new channel with video. And so video is just expensive to produce and also place. And so as we continue fundraising, it is worth noting that the Cannabis Media Council is a trade organization. Right now, we are a tax-deductible donation. We have a fiscal sponsorship with SEMA Studios, which allows us to take in donations and then give tax-deductible credit or as a contribution to the campaigns. And right now, 100% of donations are going directly to either create the production, creative production, or the media buy, where it's necessary to spend in order to open the channels. And so sometimes, in-kind media can, be more remnant or can be more, kind of what's left over. And so it's important for us to raise in order to place in premium spots, as well as a proof point to our publishers that the cannabis sector does have money and does have money to spend. And so it's a business case for publishers to do the work to take them on. And so in addition to extending the campaign, we'd love to see it in additional media formats that are dynamic. But we already, as mentioned, have 3 campaigns that the Cannabis Media Council is excited to bring out in a rolling basis over the year. And then the other way that we are working with organizations is people that have a mission and have a message, but may not have media production and a media pipeline or buying strategy. And so there's a number of organizations that are excited to partner with us so that we together can put out campaigns that are organization, their mission and message, but through the channels and best practices with the Cannabis Media Council. And so together, we can talk about how we can uplift and give good guidance as we're still self-regulating on how to put out great media campaigns.
Yeah. I mean, as you're talking, I'm just so excited. Like, it's just such an exciting time for the industry where, it sounds like these MSOs and these operators, these professionals are banding together for one common cause to just finally end the stigma, right? And the just the lack of awareness or understanding of the plant and even what's out there, like you mentioned, the products and the brands that are available. It's very exciting. And, I also think, and I'm curious to hear what you think in terms of, like, seems like you already have a leg up because, we touched on it earlier about the being memorable, those touch points and the frequency of the message until, a consumer takes action. But there really is no cannabis advertising right now, right? It's what's lacking. So it seems like, the Cannabis Media Council is really at the forefront of doing that.
I appreciate that. And one thing that I continually talk about from a marketing perspective is that we do need to fund marketing programs within the space. And I understand why compliance, why the supply chain, like why, dealing with beastly margins is what it is. But the fact is that marketing is underfunded in cannabis. Mm-hmm. And the majority of brands and businesses are looking at marketing budgets that are about 5 to maybe 8% of their operating budgets. And you compare that to retail or to a CPG, and those marketing budgets are always north of 2 figures, always 10% and up, always 12% if you're in growth, or if you're in direct to consumer, which delivery could be considered direct to consumer. Not to mention our CBD direct to consumer products. Those budgets can be up to 25%, and so it depending on where they are in the business and of course their inventory and their need to scale, of course. Right. But the fact that if we want to grow up to be a retail in the CPG category and industry, then our marketing budgets are completely underfunded. And so when I hear things like we need to brand build because there's going to be massive acquisitions or there's going to be massive consolidation, or we want there to be build the brand so that then you can be ready for a national play once we have interstate commerce or what have you. it's impossible to build a brand with, a 2 to 5% marketing budget.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
you're completely locked into performance-based marketing that leaves you alone in a silo. And it's understandable, but it is choking the industry and the brands and the ability to bring in new consumers.
Yeah. And I mean, let's talk about the reason why these marketing programs are underfunded. I think the obvious is that the restrictions, right? I mean, some of these business leaders within these companies are saying it's not worth the investment because you really have to pay to play in most of these channels. But there are tactics that, of course, you can implement, right, without paid. But it just takes a little more work and maybe resources and whatnot. So it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, it can go both ways.
Yeah. And I think it's very true. And, attribution is something that advertising has been trying to figure out since the dawn of time of advertising. So attribution is certainly nothing new as something to prove value and return on ad spend. But it is true that part of the Cannabis Media Council's goal is that as we open up new channels, and the reason why our visionary donors have supported us is that they want more channels to advertise on. And so they see that if the Cannabis Media Council can lead to market and start to open up that inventory, that they can then come along, and say when they're ready with their budgets, and say, okay, with this, I now have more channels to choose from that may be more effective for me.
Mm-hmm. Amy, what most excites you about this effort?
Oh, that's such a great question. For me, like, I am utterly committed to this plant, and I've seen it be life-changing for people, not only from a everyday wellness perspective, but also be really, really impactful in some of the most difficult, most painful parts of people's lives. And so if we can have an engagement with this plant that really affects not only people's well-being, but creates a new opportunity for people to engage with an entirely new industry that can focus on the triple bottom line of success of enriching people, also enriching equality and systemic growth, but then also watching and truly becoming a green planet. Like, this is the exciting thing to be part of, is to truly growing a new industry.
So beautiful. And I could just see the passion and just just the care just exude out of you as you talk. And this has been your mission. I mean, for over the past 15 years, is that? Or
yeah, it's been about that long. I mean, cannabis has always been my favorite, but I was galvanized when I saw a loved one go through terminal cancer, and cannabis become something that kept him present and also engaged, and also relatively pain-free, so that he could enjoy his last moments. And it galvanized me, because at the time we procured cannabis illegally, and it made a devastating situation that much harder, not to mention that he was in a compromised state. And so we really were hoping that we were sourcing from, someone that was going to be, fair and ethical and beautiful about the product that they gave us.
right.
But then also I am a white woman. And so being able to procure an illegal substance, I wasn't inflicted on, the draconian, devastating, life-ending over policing that Black and brown and Indigenous people are and still are. And so the entire system of it galvanized me to be wanting to change it, wanting to not only have people have access to this plant for fun, but also for medicine, and then have medicine that they could trust and look and see not only the efficacy and the lab testing, and look to see that it's been tested for things that may hurt their immune system that's already compromised, to then also the social justice impact of it, that that we need to get everyone out of prison for cannabis. No one should be continuing to be able to make $1 while somebody else is in prison for it. And then also really put in place reparations and an opportunity for people to thrive in this industry moving forward. And I also see it, and it's worth noting, like specifically for women to drive this industry as primary caregivers, and also healers in the plants, and also, beyond all of that, like, we're good at our jobs. And so I see that it'd be a really exciting opportunity to elevate female leadership in this new opportunity, and for them to hang on to ownership and leadership, in addition to Black and brown people who've been disproportionately devastated by the war on not even drugs, but on them as people.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you with all that you've said. I mean, that was a great summary, and I appreciate you sharing that. And just to add one more point to the female empowerment of this cannabis movement, is the plant is female, right? It's a feminized plant. So it makes total sense to really, do things differently within this industry, right? We have the opportunity to not be like traditional industries like the tech industry, or, traditional CPG or retail. So really, really enjoyed talking with you, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing your passion about, what you're doing as co-founder of the Cannabis Media Council, and teasing out, the first advertising nationwide campaign that will be running soon next year. So
yes,
it's exciting.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for chatting with me. Thank you for being in the storytelling and the stigma busting, one person by one person. And that's the truth of it. And so thank you so much for all you do to bring us closer to this plan.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And hey, you're not done yet, because we're going to have you back on once the campaign launches, because we want to talk about, how it's being received, what people are saying, what's the data that you're seeing. So looking forward to that discussion.
Excellent. Can't wait.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. And thank you all for listening. Bye.